person who struck me was Reverend Ian Greenshields, who was blessed to share a lunch and a dinner with the Queen in Balmoral just days before she passed. And I was struck when he said that she took him to the window and showed him where the garden, where she found peace. And he also said she was still sharp, she was welcoming as she always was, and had no regrets. No regrets.
Yeah.
And then Elsa Anderson also with a simple but notable point earlier. She said, ordinary woman with an extraordinary job. And she did it with such grace, and now has a son that will take on that monumental role. And we cannot say enough, this is how we started the day. She gave the world her heart. And she surely did, truly did.
We don't even live here, and we felt it, didn't we?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and looking back at this morning, I think back to what Queen Elizabeth said at just 21 years old, still a princess. She said, I declare before all of you that my whole life, whether it be long or short, shall be devoted to service. And hers was a life devoted to service and devoted to family and to people. And you could see that in the faces of the people all along that final journey home today. The images of her great-grandchildren, Prince George and Princess Charlotte, looking on the future of the royal family. She would have been proud of them. And she would have been proud of her son, Charles, now the king. And I couldn't help but to think in all the faces of the Royal Navy and of the pallbearers.
You've been watching the funeral of Queen Elizabeth II.
After 10 days of national mourning across the UK, Queen Elizabeth II has now been laid to rest. The Queen died on September 8th at 96 years old. You've just wrapped up watching ABC's full coverage. We're turning into ours now. That's the longest reign of a monarch in British history. Now hundreds of people from around the world were inside the Westminster Abbey for the funeral service this morning.
And millions also watched on screens set up for the public to view the state funeral across the UK. We have ABC certainly with more in London with the latest.
A solemn procession marking the final farewell to Queen Elizabeth II. Members from every branch of Britain's military on hand for the rare state funeral. The Queen's coffin draped with a royal standard, topped with a wreath of flowers, the imperial crown, scepter, and orb. Pallbearers drawing the gun carriage, carrying the late monarch from Westminster Hall to Westminster Abbey, the church where she was crowned and where she was married. And now, where she is eulogized with hymns and prayers. 2,000 people, including members of the royal family, heads of state, dignitaries, and everyday people in attendance.
Few leaders receive the outpouring of love that we have seen.
King Charles III and the Queen Consort leading members of the royal family and his household in procession. Even the Queen's great-grandchildren, Prince George and Princess Charlotte, walking along the Queen's final journey. The royal family visibly emotional, tears streaming down the King's face as the choir played God Save the King. Bells from London to Windsor tolling through the funeral. Authorities estimate about 1 million well-wishers crowded central London streets to see the pageantry. As the state hearse carried the Queen's coffin from Wellington Arch to Windsor Castle, the national anthem playing. Crowds of mourners watching in silence. Some clapping, a show of respect as the funeral cortege passed by. Floral tributes from the public lining the path at Windsor Castle, leading the Queen to her final resting place. Britain's longest reigning monarch reunited with her late husband, Prince Philip, laid to rest at St. George's Chapel.
And capping the deeply emotional day here in London, the United Kingdom pausing for 2 minutes after the funeral, observing a moment of silence for Her late Majesty. In London, Faith Abube, ABC News.